why I say it.
Perfect. We want to be able to record it so that people that couldn't join us in person or live, since we're virtual, can see it afterwards. Thank you, Ellen.
Sure.
Well, this is the first Sheva Educators Forum of 2019. Thank you guys so much for coming. Like I said, we're going to jump right in, and I want to introduce today's presenter, Cantor Ellen Dreskin. She is a member of our Sheva Center faculty. She's an artist in residence, a Shaliach Tzibur, a coach, a consultant, and today she's here to talk to us about the lens of Tselem Elohim and Tu B'Shvat, the holiday.
Okay, Mackenzie, thank you. The lens of Hirorerut and Tu B'Shvat.
The lens of Hirorerut, use me. And before, as people were coming in, I tried to explain a little bit what we're going to be doing later on. We want to, at some point, break you guys up into virtual breakout rooms. So if you're just joining us, if you could right-click on your Brady Bunch tile, your little screen, and rename yourself with the name of your school, and then in parentheses, if you could just let us know how many people are sitting with you, we can make sure that if you're sitting by yourself, you get virtually connected with other people. And if you have a big group, maybe you can just have the discussion within your groups. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie, and hi, everybody. And it's wonderful to see some really familiar faces on these screens and a lot of faces that I haven't seen before. So thanks for joining us and welcome. We are going to begin with the blessing for immersing ourselves in words of learning and words of Torah. And I'm going to share my screen, and once I am assured that y'all can see my screen, we will dive into the blessing. So here's my question. Just somebody give me a nod. Do you indeed see my screen with Hebrew and lots of colors and things like that? Beautiful. Thanks, Mackenzie. So we say this blessing formula together, and in a little while we will come back in our discussion to the blessing formula and what does it mean to utter a blessing and why do things like begin meetings or sessions such as these with a blessing. So for now we will bless, and we'll come back and talk about it a little bit later. We say together, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And you can see in the color codes that the Hebrew and the transliteration and the English correspond, are color coordinated. And one of the lines that we're going to be talking about this afternoon or referring back to is the line that's in red. It says, Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, which is why do we say these blessings? Why do we involve ourselves in this type of study and learning? Asher kidshanu, not to make something else kadosh or holy, but we're the ones who are being sanctified, if we want to use religious language, or we're the ones who are becoming intentional. We're the ones who are using the blessing to set aside or elevate a particular activity. And by doing that, we ourselves are elevated. When we speak about this in the language of the lens of Hirorerut, of wonder and awakening, what we're going to return to in a little bit is this idea that saying a blessing serves to wake us up. And that's the message for right now. So hopefully here we are awakened and in the room. We have said our blessing and have in that perhaps internally committed ourselves to spending this next amount of time together in a particularly intentional and awake time. So again, that lens is called Hirorerut, awakening, wonder, curiosity, and looking at things through a different set of lenses or where we are in our lives. So we have to talk about where are we? What's the context in the outside world and in our Jewish world for today's conversation? And what I will do is, I think, start off by mentioning some things that might not feel so connected, and then we'll get them to a place where they indeed, I hope, connect with each other. The first thing that I turn to when I speak about our Jewish story and where are we in the world is the Torah portion. And where are we in our weekly Torah readings at this point? And many of you may know that we find ourselves in the book of Exodus, at the beginning of the book of Exodus. And at this time of year, January-ish, we're usually about in the same place at this time each year. In last week, this week, next week of our Torah portions, we're in the book of Exodus, and this is where we get introduced to the character of Moses. I may be telling you things you already know, but Moses, as most of us know, is born in a time when the Israelites are enslaved in Egypt by Pharaoh. Couple of fun things to know is that the Hebrew name for Egypt is Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, if you change the vowels around a little bit, which we do quite frequently in Hebrew, can also mean Meitzarim. Meitzarim means from the narrow places. So when we say that Pharaoh is king of Egypt, he's also a king of narrowness and narrow perspective and narrow places. And that's going to figure into what happens to him in the story. But Moses is born into a town, a country, a time when the Israelites are enslaved. Moses is put in the basket and sent up or down the river by his mother so that in order to save his life. And he is then adopted, the Torah tells us, by Pharaoh's daughter and raised in the royal household. He's got a nice life. He doesn't have to worry about much, we would think, except he goes out walking one day, the Torah tells us, and sees an Egyptian taskmaster beating an Israelite slave. And he gets an awakening there. Something's not right about this. He gets enraged and he kills the taskmaster. He realizes that once he's done this, he better get out of town because Pharaoh might come after him because he's killed the Egyptian taskmaster. So he has a sort of awakening and he runs away from it. He becomes a lovely shepherd and married out in the desert. And he is pretty much able to stay, what we're going to call for our purposes, asleep for a little while, until one day he's out in the desert and he sees a bush that is burning, but he stops long enough to notice that the bush, while it is burning, it's not burning up, it's not consumed. And indeed, when he stops to consider this, a voice speaks to him from the bush, and the Torah tells us this is the voice of God, and this is where he gets his real wake-up call. The bush, or God through the bush, says to him, get up, wake up, go back to Pharaoh, go back to this very narrow place that you came from, this very narrow perspective. Tell Pharaoh, let my people go. And there are a series of plagues, and indeed Pharaoh ends up, after a great struggle and the little incident of the crossing of the Red Sea, indeed, the Israelites do go free. So the reason that I bring this up and spend so much time on it is because Pharaoh indeed does seem to be the king of narrowness. And one of the things that we know about him is through the course of this entire relationship with Moses and the 10 plagues, etc., that Pharaoh's heart is hardened. If we studied it carefully in the Torah, we would find out that for the first few plagues, it just says that Pharaoh has a hard heart. And his heart is hard, and so he doesn't let the Israelites go. A few plagues into the 10 plagues, the Torah changes its language and begins to say, God is hardening Pharaoh's heart. And that is something that we're going to return to again and again in the next few minutes. And so I want us to just remember that phrase. How does it feel to be hard-hearted? It might not be in every aspect of our lives. It might only be in relationship to one thing. So let me ask you, if any of you, raise the hand, how many of you have ever felt what you might call hard-hearted? In a relationship, in a project, in a work group, in life. Anybody ever go through a moment of that? If not, I would imagine you will someday, and I wish us all well. We all go through it at one part or another. And people have problems with this phrase, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. But let's think for a minute. Think, if you will, those of you who raised your hand, what can harden a person's heart. Sometimes it might be, as in Pharaoh, he has a limited perspective on the world and his role in it. And when he gets pushback from Moses, from God, from his advisors, from the plagues, Pharaoh's response is to harden his heart even more. You may not use this phrase. How many of you have even the slightest stubborn streak inside of you? Okay. Sometimes that's our human reaction, and that is a heart hardening. When I get pushback from something, when it makes me uncomfortable, when it is unfamiliar perhaps, I can put up a wall. I can harden my own heart. So digging in your heels and being stubborn is a heart hardening. The Israelite slaves also, we don't call their hearts hardening, but the fact is they become so used to oppression and so used to slavery that they were in a bit of a routine that had become a rut, a pattern that they did not have the strength or the energy to break out of. So they were hardened by their challenges. They were hardened by their oppression. Sometimes we do get hardened by habit and routine, and get so set in our ways we don't even think about our routines anymore. We just do them by default. This also is kind of a hardening. Now, so why do I bring all this up now? Let's take it to, that's one strand: Torah, Pharaoh, narrowness, heart hardening. Another strand that we're picking up on in this session today is the fact that 1 week from this Monday, on January 21st, it will be Tu B'Shvat, the 15th of the Hebrew month of Shvat, what we familiarly call the birthday of the trees or the new year of the trees. Why bring this up now? What does it have to do with anything? How many of you are right now in a geographic place where it is spring? Buds are blooming, leaves are back on the trees, stuff is poking out of the ground, it's 80 degrees outside. Okay, me neither. Oh, wait, where are you waving at me from? Where's Neerman? You're on mute.
San Diego.
Oh, okay. All right. You folks in San Diego, you definitely live in an alternative universe. But you were right. I was going to ask, why is it odd to have Tu B'Shvat, a birthday of the trees, in the middle of January? Because it does seem odd unless you're in maybe Florida or San Diego or in the Middle East, where things are starting to bloom perhaps. But let's think about what we can't see as opposed to what we can. What we might not be able to see is that while it would appear that the ground is bare and dry, that it is cold outside, that nothing is blooming, I think if we really think about it, we realize that things are happening underneath the surface. There are seeds there that have yet to open, but the conditions are getting into place. The stars and the sun and the seasons are aligning so that these tiny little hard-shelled seeds underneath the surface of the earth will soon have better conditions for cracking open and letting something new grow. Sometimes seeds can be almost like our hearts that can be closed off and hard, and it takes certain conditions for them to be able to open up. So we are ourselves kind of like the trees as the spring comes around. It's January. Happy New Year. I don't know how many of you made New Year's resolutions. Anybody here make New Year's resolutions for January 1st? No. Okay, I may be alone in that. I had a few ideas because I did make way back in the fall when it was Rosh Hashanah. I did make resolutions, and now that it is Tu B'Shvat, and now that it's January, and now that I'm here with you, I find myself thinking back to the autumn and thinking back to how I started the school year. What did I hope for my class? What did I hope for my teamwork with my colleagues? What did I hope for myself as a teacher? And when I stop now and look at those things, I wonder, well, it's 4 months later. It's January. It's the beginning of another kind of a new year. Where am I with the seeds that perhaps I planted in the fall? Have all of them blossomed? Are all of them growing? Am I finding the time to nourish the seeds that were planted in the fall? And what new seeds do I need to be thinking about planting now so that there can be continued growth and kind of a spring awakening, a spring Hirorerut for all of us in the educational world? So whether we realize it or not, daylight hours are getting longer. Spring is around the corner. Things are happening underneath the surface. The reason we bring in the Sheva lens of Hirorerut at this point is because in more than one area, as I've already mentioned several times, we are asleep. Asleep, either we can call it hardened or we can call it asleep, but perhaps routine has become rut. Maybe the circumstances of our world or our own lives are challenging, and so it's easier to stay asleep and a little bit closed off and a little bit numb to things that are going on around us. Hirorerut will not let us do that. Hirorerut demands that we stay awake in order to be better people in the world, and indeed in order to be more nourishing to ourselves. But waking up and changing and growing often involves loss, and that sometimes makes it difficult. I share a short story with you now. Some of you may have heard me tell this story before. The story is about a puddle that is in a desert kind of area, not too far from a shore perhaps. Think Israel, desert terrain, and yet it is on a shore. It does have a coastline. So there's a puddle near the desert. The puddle has a beautiful view, as so many of us do when we're in Israel. You can be in one place and look at a totally different landscape. The puddle, from where it sits, can see mountains in the distance, and a beautiful mountain stream flowing from the top all the way down. And it all looks so green and flowy and beautiful. And day after day, the puddle says aloud, I wish more than anything in the world that I could be part of that mountain stream off in the distance. Please, dear God, couldn't I be like the mountain stream? Every single day the puddle is praying. And finally, the puddle actually hears a response. The response is, you know what, puddle? You can be part of the mountain stream. It's easy. All you have to do is evaporate. All you have to do is let yourself become part of that cloud that you see up in the air above you. So you won't be a puddle any longer, you'll be a cloud. Well then, once you're part of the cloud, all you have to do is let the wind blow the cloud over toward the mountains. And then you won't be part of the cloud anymore. Once you get over the mountains, you're going to turn into rain. And from the cloud, you'll be allowed to rain down into the meadows or into the mountain soil. And then you will become part of this ecosystem that sends streamlets, rivulets to the stream itself. And fantastic, mazel tov, you're going to be part of the mountain stream. The puddle to this day still sits there. No matter how much it wanted to become part of the mountain stream, it found it too difficult to let go of what it was in order to become what it wanted to be. And it's important to acknowledge that all change involves loss. And no matter how much we want to change, sometimes it's really hard to let go of what was. Pharaoh couldn't seem to let go of his Pharaoh-ness. He couldn't seem to soften his heart. For the good of his people, for his own good, for the good of the Israelites, not interested, because it would mean letting go of being the kind of Pharaoh that he was, and he just couldn't do it. So here's a question. We're going to go, Mackenzie, and this is where we're going to start gearing up for the small group, so hopefully it will work out, and thank you in advance for the work you're doing on our behalf. You're going to go into small groups for about 10 minutes or so. And here's the question. You might want to jot down some little notes. The question is this: as we think about Tu B'Shvat and seeds cracking open, as we think about the new year and waking up to spring, waking up to reconsidering ideas from the past few months, perhaps brand new ideas. Here's my question for you. And I have also, in terms of Tu B'Shvat, the idea of nuts and seeds on my mind there as well. So here's the question. What is one either seed I'd like to crack open, or what is one nut I'd like to crack in the coming months in my own professional development? This is for each of us individually. The second part of the question is, how can I encourage the seed to grow? How can I encourage new growth? And please keep in mind that that might include asking for assistance from others in helping to nourish the growth that you are talking about. The last question is, what might I need to let go of in order to make room for the change that I'm hoping for? 3 parts. What seed or nut do I want to crack open in order that new growth can occur for myself? What kind of help might I need? What kinds of things are going to help the seed to grow and nourish and cultivate it? And part 3, what might I need to let go of in order to allow the new to happen? So we're going to go into small groups for about 10 minutes. And you don't need to worry about the timing, because Mackenzie and or I can press a button in 10 minutes. And whether you like it or not, hopefully you'll like it, you will be automatically popped back into this main room. So Mackenzie, are we good to go?
I think we are. So I divided the groups up, and if it seemed like you guys had a little bit of a larger group, either 4 of you all together on the same screen, you guys will be in your own breakout group. So don't worry if you guys are alone. You'll have your colleagues to talk to that are sitting right next to you. So if all goes well, in a few seconds, you guys will, there's a little bubble that will pop up, and you just say yes, accept, and then you'll be whisked away into your breakout rooms, and then we'll call you back. All right, see you later.
See you later. Okay, I think folks are going to start to pop back in now in just a few seconds. So if you're here in the room, if you can hear my voice, then you want to wrap it up, because folks are going to be coming back. Indeed. Right on cue. Welcome back, everybody, or almost everybody. Oh, I always come back from group discussions or from breakout rooms and apologize for those of you who were mid-sentence when the room disappeared all of a sudden and you're thrown back into the large group. I do apologize for that. So does anyone want to take a second and share something that maybe you shared in the small group, or something interesting that came up that you think might be of use or of interest to others in the room? Anyone want to? You can take yourself off mute and speak to us if you like. I see. I don't know if that was a hand being raised in Austin or nobody.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy.
Okay, someone speak loud. If you're speaking, speak loudly, because I can barely hear you.
One seed that I'd like to crack, I teach the twos, is that instead of being so busy all the time with the children and hands-on, I'd like to get a notebook. I did do this at one point, but I feel like I stepped away from it, is to get a notebook and jot down more of their conversations and what they're saying to one another, and to let one thing I'd have to let go of to make this happen is I would have to ask my assistants to really step up more and help with the busy type work of diapers and art and those kind of things. That if they could do that while I sat there and observed and wrote down my observations.
Okay, so it was a little bit soft. So just repeating the basics of it is the idea that taking the time to observe and to make observations and even document some of the activities and the growth areas for the students. It's hard to find the time to do that, and there are other parts of the day, other moments that you might have to let go of in order to find the time to sit down and actually document and to write and observe. And observation itself and is a kind of a waking up. If I can take the time, as Moses did when he saw the bush that was burning, he had to stand there a little while to see that what was special about it was that it was not being consumed, it wasn't burnt up. And our rabbinic commentators say it's that bushes burn in the desert all the time. The sun is hot, the bushes are dry, spontaneous combustion. But only Moses stopped long enough to observe that this particular bush wasn't being consumed. And that's why God spoke to Moses, because he was the first one to stop long enough to listen and to see what was really going on underneath the surface. So it's a noble cause, a good thing to wake up to. Anybody else, one more person, want to share a little something that maybe you shared in the group?
Here you go.
Hi.
Hi.
One thing that we were talking about is just letting go control. And so
Say that one more time, letting go.
Letting go.
Okay, is this better?
Oh, much. Thank you.
Not having as much control, letting go, especially when it comes to our kids. And so since I'm an older teacher, it's real easy for me to go behind the kiddos and clean up the water spill instead of letting them learn that it's okay to have a spill and that they can grow from it. What does it take to get them to work together as a team and to fix what happened? Or if you have a baby that is learning how to eat, instead of feeding them, letting them feed themselves. So what? They make a lot of mistakes. So what that they have a lot of stuff on their face. The only way they're ever going to learn is for them to do it. So for me, it's not having as much control and letting them make their mistakes, building and playing in dirt. And, we made magnetic slime and it didn't work. And that's okay. And they saw that as a teacher, you have to follow instructions. And because I'm older, I figure I just know how to do it real quick. And I didn't. And I messed up. And so we talked about the boo-boo and we redid it and it actually works. So it's control for us, or for me, not,
Okay.
I can't talk about everybody else.
Excellent. And sometimes that's what it takes in other situations as well, of admitting that you're not in control. You can't always be in control. Maybe it's not such a great idea for you to be in control all the time. I think we all meet up with that at different points in our lives and in our work. So thanks for those of you who shared, and I hope the other discussions were fruitful ones, and they can certainly continue when we're done here. Let's come back for a moment to this idea of Hirorerut, of awakening and blessing, and the purpose that a blessing might serve. So in the midst of winter, Hirorerut says, wake up. Wake up to what's going on under the surface. Stay curious. Stay reflective. How can I be like a tree and examine myself, I want to say, from roots to fruits? From my foundations to the trunk, what are my areas of strength that allow me to stand strong and firm in certain ways? How far do my branches reach? What fruit am I growing, and how willing am I to share it, etc.? There's so many metaphors there, ways in which we can think about ourselves and waking up in this time of winter. In the Jewish prayer service, we say a prayer every single morning, thanking God or expressing gratitude for the morning. And there's one line in that prayer. In Hebrew, it says that God is Hamechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. A lot of Hebrew. If you don't understand it, don't worry about it. It means that God is found in the waking up to the idea that every single second is an opportunity to do something new, to change, to recreate, to innovate, to change your perspective on. We never run out of opportunities to grow and change and try and be something different than we are now. Going back to the trees, remember, a seed, just like the puddle, a seed has to stop being a seed in order to grow. The seed then becomes this crazy series of roots, then has to send some trunk up into the air and the sky, etc. So everything has to let go of something in order to become something else. We use blessings in Judaism as a way of staying awake. And I'm going to show you an example of that now with a screen share here. A nod, everybody can see my screen, Hebrew, etc. Beautiful. Okay. We have a section of the service in the morning, which is called Birchot HaShachar, or actually literally blessings of the dawn. And Jews who pray every morning say this particular list of blessings every single morning. The Hebrew is there. I have paraphrased the English. They all start, as did our blessing this earlier in our session, with Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. We may know that means blessed are you, O God, ruler of the universe. I don't want God to be a stumbling block in this conversation. So for our purposes, let's interpret Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam to I am awake to the idea that these things exist in the universe. And I am also grateful. That's what a blessing does for us. It not only wakes us up to something that is going on, but says, express gratitude for it, bless it, make it different. No matter how daily it is, no matter how routine it is, no matter how mundane it is, these code words, Baruch Atah Adonai, is a Jewish way of setting it apart and making it special and being awake to it. So each morning we develop a daily, what we'll call an attitude of gratitude, that we're able to say every morning, I am aware that I'm able to distinguish between day and night, when it's time to go to sleep, when it's time to wake up. I'm grateful that I have vision, whether it's spiritual vision or material vision through our eyes. It can be anything. That I am covered with something, whether it's clothes or blankets. Again, this is as we wake up in the morning. That I am free to stretch my arms as I wake up. That I can straighten up, I can sit upright, I can swing my legs over the side of the bed and plant my feet on the floor. There's firm ground there for me to stand on, that I'm aware that I am a human being with desires and needs and strengths and gifts to contribute, and that, thank God, my daily needs are met. I am physically here, I have food to eat, I live in a home, etc. I can be strong, I am beautiful. And this very last sentence is really lovely when we think about Hirorerut and really waking up to this attitude of gratitude or awakening. The Hebrew says, Baruch Atah Adonai, Hama'avir sheina me'enai utunuma me'afapai. That's the Hebrew. In English, it literally means I am grateful that I can wipe the sleep out of my eyes and the slumber from my eyelids. So really, each day in Jewish prayer, we make sure to utter a number of blessings in the morning, concluding with the one that says, please God, if nothing else happens today, just may I please stay awake. So the blessing of Hirorerut is hopefully with us throughout the day. And we front load our day with an attitude of gratitude. So blessings become a tool for waking up and staying awake. So I think that I'm looking at the clock. I don't think we'll go back into the breakout rooms again, but I just want to ask some of you, if you feel so moved, to take yourself off mute and just answer the question vocally for the whole gang. Can you think, we'll take a few seconds first for you to think. Can you think of a moment in your day that is just the routine of routines? It can be personal or it can be professional at this point. Maybe you can think of both. And might you be able to come up with a way to elevate that moment or wake up to looking at that moment differently by uttering a blessing? What if I could find a blessing in doing the laundry regularly? And think, you know, I could be petulant and poopy every time I have to do the laundry because I really don't feel like doing the laundry. Or I could go to do the laundry and I could find a way to say, Baruch atah Adonai, for... Somebody finished it for me. Someone say something? Anyone want to offer up something? Well, gee, I wish that before I ever did X, I could find a blessing in order to elevate that moment and not make it one of the more boring moments of my day. If you're speaking, speak loudly. I see you raising a hand. Just yell at us. Is someone at the Bender JCC speaking? Can't hear you. Don't know why. Ooh. I hear a very soft voice. Very soft. Yep, Lisa, I can hear you really softly.
You just said the blessing that you have running water, that you have a machine to be able to do that, and that you don't have to walk 2 miles just to get water to wash your clothes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Baruch atah Adonai, that I have everything I need in order to keep myself clothed and my family warm and adorned, or something along those lines. That I even have the clothes that I need in order to wash them. So there are moments. Sometimes I'm going into a meeting with a difficult person and I say, I have a blessing for an open heart, because I don't want to be hard-hearted, and I don't want to, I'm going into a meeting where I know my first instinct is going to be to dig my heels in and harden my heart. And sometimes I say Baruch atah Adonai, that allows me to try and remain open to the ideas that are about to be expressed in this meeting. That's a good way to start some meetings in general, is for everyone to open and soften their hearts before challenging situations or challenging moments in the day, or just as you go through your routine day, to find moments to say, can I wake up to something new going on here? I want to, as we have about 10 minutes left, and I'm pulling up another screen here because I'd like to share a wonderful video with you, which gets us to the ways in which even the most mundane or normal aspects of our day become moments to mechadesh b'chol yom, moments to renew, moments to wake up. So let me get to this point where I can share my screen with you. If the volume is soft, then please feel free to turn it up. We're going to take about 5 minutes on this video.
You think this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you today. It's given to you. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now. And the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you do nothing else but to cultivate that response to the great gift that this unique day is, if you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. We just think of the weather, and even of the weather we don't think of all the many nuances of weather. We just think of good weather and bad weather. This day, right now, it's unique weather. Maybe a kind that will never exactly in that form come again. The formation of clouds in the sky will never be the same that is right now. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face. A story that you could never fully fathom. Not only their own story, but the story of their ancestors. We all go back so far. And in this present moment, on this day, all the people you meet, all that life from generations and from so many places all over the world, flows together and meets you here like a life-giving water if you only open your heart and drink. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives to us. You flip a switch and there is electric light. You turn a faucet and there is warm water and cold water and drinkable water. It's a gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. So these are just a few of an enormous number of gifts to which we can open your heart. And so I wish you that you will open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you. That everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you. Just by your eyes, by your smile, by your touch, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessing all around you. And then it will really be a good day.
Oh, I don't know how many of you have seen that particular video before, but I find it pretty useful. And it takes us also, even though it's not Jewish in nature, it really speaks about blessing and gratitude all as one in one ball of wax, which I really appreciate. Not only the idea that we receive blessings just in the form of everything that we can take in and that we have at our fingertips and our disposal during the course of the day. Not only that we receive blessings, but taking it to that next step of gratefulness, of gratitude, and also realizing that we then can become the blessings ourselves. We can be gentle, blessing-filled wake-up calls for other people. We can nourish other people's seeds that are just cracking open at the season of Tu B'Shvat, and help to water and cultivate those seeds. In terms of our students, Tu B'Shvat happening here in many parts of America where the ground is still hard and it's really hard to see any evidence of anything growing, even though it's Tu B'Shvat, it's the birthday of the trees. We're reminded that even when we think with our students, with our colleagues, with our lives, that nothing is going on, something is always going on. Something is always getting ready to awaken, possibly, to bust through the surface, to turn into something that it wasn't before. And we are able to bless that. We're able to wake up to it, and we're able to express gratitude for it. So now becomes a time as we close up. Hopefully you can continue these kinds of discussions. Yes, I know that the Jewish New Year was in the fall, and this is the secular New Year, but Happy New Year. At this season, where are we going in the next few months? What did I wake up to in the fall that maybe I fell back asleep to now? How can I use blessings and moments of the day to stay either to myself or even to others or even to my students? Stop. Look at what's going on here right now. Isn't this amazing? And then make up your own on the spur of the moment. Baruch atah Adonai. Isn't it great that we have Zoom rooms that we can learn together and see each other's smiles, particularly those of us who know each other and haven't seen these smiles in a little while. Yeah, I'm blowing kisses to you too, Jackie. I just got to say it's good to see you.
To see you too. It's good to see you too.
And look, yes, Jackie was with the Sheva Fellows in Israel and came home with this lovely cast on her arm. And it's good to see you in all of your glory, and thank God for healing. And so here we are. We want to approach the new season with a softened heart, to look out for those days when we want to dig in our heels, when we want to go back to sleep, when we don't feel like being awakened to anything, to still try to find a way to bless, to wake up, to express gratitude, and to water the seeds and the growth of those around us. So 4 o'clock on the dot, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here with us today. And I'm just ellendreskin@gmail.com if anyone wants to contact me, or you can always contact me through the Sheva Center. And I look forward to the next time that we get to study something together very soon.
Thank you so much, Ellen.
Happy Tu B'Shvat.
This will be recorded and posted on jcca.me once we're done editing it. So if you guys wanted to reference back to it, please either send me an email or take a look for it on jcca.me. And thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you at the next one.
Bye. Thank you for being here.